Spoilers, run away if you do not want them. Chapter 234, JJK, let's go! What's up guys, Rapunzel here, and here we are to do a breakdown and discussion on the chapter 234 spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen, the chapter known as the Battle in the Demon-Infested Shinjuku Part 12. And this chapter is so unbelievably gas, but has some things that I really don't like in it. But at the same time, it's so unbelievably gas that I'm a man of two minds right now. So I need to break down and discuss it. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. What's up guys, Rapunzel here. Fun fact, I have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. And I suppose Maharaga has it on him and kept it on him at all times, because golly gee willikers, fellas. But we open up with something much simpler, yet simultaneously just as interesting. The chapter opens up with Yuta saying he's going to join the battle to help Gojo. And when you look, I think, see, I always wonder this, how much of a pulse do creators have on their community? How much? And notably, I don't even know what the Japanese JJK fandom looks like, but I wonder how much of a pulse Gege has on this. Because one thing that's been constantly stated about Yuta these past 12 chapters up to this point is that Yuta has been sweating. Yuta looks like he's not built for this. Yuta looks like he would never step in, even if Satoru Gojo were to lose. All that good stuff. That's what Yuta's been like. And admittedly, other creators, other people in the fan, everybody's been clowning on Yuta for that. It's just been a non-stop. It's not like a hate train or anything. I've seen even Yuta fans joke about it because it's literally just been so funny. Bro has not been drawn. He was drawn without a sweat. Let me think. Once? Yeah, he was drawn without a sweat mark once. And even then, he still looks stressed. Bro has lost 30 years off his life by existing in the vicinity of the TVs of this fight. He seems so unbelievably stressed, so no one believed he was going to tag in. So opening 234 with Yuta's grip firmly on the katana, being ready to roll out like the Autobots, that's a teeny tiny bit crazy. So a teeny tiny bit crazy. And interestingly enough, of all the people to tell Yuta, hey, sit your behind down, bro, it's Kashimo Hajime. He's the one that says, he straight up says to Yuta, hey, yo, bro, don't interfere, because I got next. which is so crazy. So this is just confirming that Kashimo's a poacher. I don't like that. I don't know. I really don't like that part of this character. As I've been trying to let slide. I've been trying to agree with everybody else. A lot of the fellow Kashimo fans out there have always been like, oh, well, he just wants to fight the strongest. He doesn't care who the strongest is, what the strongest state they're in, yada, 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 yada. No. The reason characters like Kashimo are one of the most metal characters in the entire series is because he immediately thought of a way to defeat Hikari when he wasn't immortal, when he wasn't in his strongest state, and said, no. That's how losers think. I'm going to slay myself an immortal man. Kashimo always seemed like the guy to me who would want to defeat their opponent, strongest or not, at their best. And seeing Kashimo literally just proudly declare to Yuta, I got next, bro. It's a cool panel, don't get me wrong. This is a very cool standoff. I like how Kashimo's electricity starts to flare up, like, don't make me whoop you, young boy. And then Yuta automatically starts to flare back. Like, both immediately start revving their cursed energy like they're about to throw hands right here, right now. Oh, mega cool visual. Obviously, this is alluding to the what if of what would have happened if Hikari went to Sendai, and it was Yuta who went to Tokyo number 2, I do believe. So I like that. I think this is a really cool visual. But at the same time, it kind of... it's kind of... Because he says, at least it's not you who has to go next, implying that Kashimo wants next. And I get it. I don't know. It still feels so out of character for Kashimo. Someone who's so proud in his status as a warrior that he wouldn't even whip out his curse technique against someone who, for all intents and purposes, he thought was trying to him, and didn't want to execute when the man was not immortal because he thought it wouldn't be fun enough. The fact that he doesn't want to fight the strongest of the strongest, it hits a deep part of my core. This is the chapter opens up with extreme high point, Yuta versus Kashimo, even if it's just like the two revving their auras. Neat. I like that. But at the same time, it hits with the low point of just confirming that Kashimo is just, he's not as like that as I thought. I will admit he still is ready to go next, which once again leads me to believe that the pretenses of this deal was that Kashimo would be allowed to fight after Gojo, no matter what. Like, that was kind of just the rule. Kashimo would fight after Gojo, and thusly Yuta has no place to interfere in this battle. But still, come on now, broski. Come on now, broski. Now I'm legit hoping that Gojo wins just so he can fight Kashimo and whoop Kashimo's behind. Now, but we do get to see that Hakari's like, hey, bro. I won't lie to you. Kashimo mad spooky, dog. I barely beat him because of an environmental type matchup, bro. You ain't got no water around here. Chill out. Calm it down. Relax. And Akari reminds Yuta that, hey, remember what Gojo said? He said, only tag in when Gojo gets weaker than them. And I was literally planning a video. I was legit planning a video of brain damage Sukuna versus the entirety of the heavy hitters / JJK Tech itself. And I was going to say Gojo wins. But like, this is just flat out saying that Gojo wins because none of them have tagged in yet, because Gojo, while brain damaged, likely super duper fatigued and lowered on output, is still stronger than all of them. And you mean to tell me they were supposed to surpass him? What? Like, I don't know what Gojo was talking about, bro. How are the people meant to surpass you in the room right now, Gojo? Because what? How do you have no access to domain? Your brain's fried. Your body's breaking down. Your output's dropping like crazy. And yet, multiple students, including Hakari and Maki, are like, yeah, we're still not Himothy like that. Like, we still aren't stronger than this man. Like, that is crazy. And it's likely that Gojo was referring to them as a collective, right? Because, well, no, at least in the little mini translations I have, it says Gojo asks him to tag in when he gets weaker than them, which implies the collective, which implies that this super fatigued, brain damaged Gojo would absolutely mollywop all Jujutsu Tech, which is something that I already believed, but it's weird to have it, like, smacked on the table in narrative. Gege's literally just laying his foot down on the table and being like, oh yeah, Gojo's that strong. Which makes sense, don't get me wrong, but still. And Yuta says, well, the biggest issue of Sukuna was his domain expansion. And that's now gone. So there's no reason for me to not step in and fight with Gojo to at least take on the Shikigamis, at least keep the fight to a fair one-on-one. And I'm not exact. So, think here. Once again, this is just the main translation. This is going to change when the full chapter translation comes out, and it's probably going to change again when the officials come out. But at least in the little main translations I have here, it says he can help Gojo by handling the 2 Shikigamis with Rika. Now, what does that mean? Does he mean he's just going to fight the 2 Shikigamis with himself and unmanifested Rika? Or is he going to pull out full Rika? Because one of my big things, and this is something I'm not sure if I pushed on the channel, I may have just pushed it on the TikTok, I 100% believed that Yuta should have Angel's Technique at this point. He should. And if he does have Angel's Technique, both Agito and Mahoraga are in 1-tap range. All he needs to do is shine that heavenly light. Gojo's going to notice the light and be like, uh-oh. Teleport out of there, or just look, or just face tank it. Like, there's no reason. Gojo's not an evil spirit, so he should be fine. But Mahoraga and Agito should be instantly annihilated. And sure, Mahoraga would then become part of the totality, but maybe becoming part of the totality resets its adaptations, and then Gojo has to, or no, Sukuna then has to build up the adaptations from RIP all over again. That could be the case. But at the same time, it could be the fact that Yuta just wants to fight him with Rika. And if so, that makes it seem like he doesn't have Angel's Technique. It's very interesting that Angel doesn't even get shown in this chapter at all. We know she's there. Hana is still there. But, I don't know. The wording's a little bit weird on that one. I'm hoping he got buffs over the month period. I'm hoping. Speaking of characters getting buffs, where's Kenjaku? Oh, yeah. He's executing every last individual that's involved in the Culling games. Where is he? How many colonies has he cleared out by this point? It's been a hot second since this battle started. What is happening? There have been at least like 6 minutes. 6 minutes have gone by. How much carnage and havoc has Kenjaku wreaked? Here's the thing. I mentioned this in one of my TikTok mutuals comment sections, but I would literally not be shocked if characters like Hazanoki, characters like Uro, characters we don't know anyone else. I mean, I guess maybe like Helicopter Man, but he was captured, so I'm not sure. But essentially, what I'm wondering is, do characters like that become part of Kenjaku's kit if he beats them without sorcery? Like, if he just turns a whole bunch of sorcerers into vengeful spirits, he gets Hazanoki as a vengeful spirit, so he has a vengeful spirit that can detonate parts of its body. He gets Uro as a vengeful spirit, so he has a vengeful spirit that can manipulate space. Because remember, the only thing you need to really make a vengeful spirit is to slay a sorcerer without Jujutsu. And Kenny's more than capable of just pulling a knife out of his back pocket and just... So, I wouldn't be shocked if he's expanding his arsenal right now. That's something that I actually low-key kind of want, because I still think that Kenjaku is going to third-party this. Like, even if he doesn't immediately third-party the crew, I think once the quote-unquote winner of Gojo versus Sukuna is decided, it's not going to last for, like, at best, more than a chapter. Because then Kenjaku's going to come in and be like, merger time, and then start whipping one of them up in the kitchen. But we see that we get hinted at some nice matchups in this chapter. Matchups we'll never see, but nice matchups in this chapter. Because Maki tells Kashimo to not forget his role. And that's interesting. So Kashimo isn't just here being a good little boy based on the pretenses that he'll hop in next. He's also apparently some sort of insurance or backup plan. So I really wish we got to see this month time skip. Like, I want to know how the conversation with Kashimo went. Because I don't know, once again, the guy I knew would not have been this easily convinced. But apparently he's some insurance or backup plan. So they do have a bunch of faith in Kashimo's curse technique. Very, very interesting. And also, you know, Maki talking that kind of talk to Kashimo. And Kashimo, seemingly enough, not responding. Actually, no, he responds a little bit. He does have a tiny little panel where he sparks a bit. So Maki versus Kashimo? Be a shame if someone were to make that video as a response to his old video on Toji versus Kashimo, where he thinks he was flat out wrong. But with that being the case, we see that realistically, this is now the time to gamble. It is the safest time to gamble. There are no binding, as far as they know, there are no binding vows set up around this fight. It's not like either individual has an automatic ability to execute them now that their domain is gone. So realistically, there's no better time to hop in and cause havoc to make sure that the insurance plan doesn't even need to be used. And right now, Yuta hopping in, taking out the Shikigami would then leave Gojo, who's on a roll right now, or at least not on a roll, but is in the zone right now with the Black Flash. It would be enough for Gojo to likely defeat Sukuna. If Maharaga's taken care of, Sukuna loses. At current, I'd say. I know that sounds like a bold claim, but remember, Sukuna's not adapted to anything. Bro took damage from a blue. Admittedly, it was a max output blue, or it was a blue lapse and an 8-pronged ring. But still, he took damage from blue, the most basic of Gojo's techniques. Gojo can still use red. He still hasn't whipped out purple. In fact, he won't whip out purple this chapter. I guess maybe until the end. We'll talk about that. So, Maharaga is the biggest issue. And we see in this chapter that Maharaga is Omega the biggest issue. But we see that Yuji backs up his fellow main character and is like, do it, Yuta. Jump in. However, we do get to see that in spite of this, Kusakabe and Mei point out that they would just get in the way. Or even Yuta would just get in the way. Right now, with Sukuna not being able to give his everything with the lack of domain, and Gojo being Satoru Gojo, the strongest when he's alone, in fact, despite the fact he's being jumped by two of the strongest Shikigami, if not flat out the two strongest Shikigami in history, maybe even greater than Rika, this setup is the highest winning probability. Gojo is that overwhelmingly powerful that if Yuta, quote-unquote, second to Gojo himself in unusual abilities, were to actually spawn in on the battlefield, he would actually just be a hindrance. Which is, once again, it goes to show, like, this In my opinion, the gap between Yuta and Gojo in terms of raw power is very similar to the gap between Yurichi and Michikatsu. Is that his name? I forget Yurichi's older twin brother's name. I know his name is Kokushiba, but like I think his original name, Michikatsu Sugekuni, that's the thing. Because a lot of people, especially considering Michikatsu is kind of featless when in Demon Slayer power scaling discussions, a lot of people try to gas Michikatsu up because he was second to Yurichi in the golden era of Demon Slayer. So he has to be super duper powerful. But no, he doesn't have to be. The gap between 1 and 2 can be 15 light years. Like legitimately. And this is the case with here and now with Gojo and Yuta. Even if you want to say Gojo, or not Gojo, Yuta is the second strongest sorcerer. Go with the alternative translation. Even still, the gap between 1 and 2 is so drastic that it's actually tragic. Yuta would just be a hindrance. Though if he has Angel's Technique, I don't think so. But at the same time, I understand why they want to save Yuta. Because remember, in order for the win con of the Culling game to be met, unless Kenjaku can break the rules, which I wouldn't be shocked. Kenjaku, if any character can break the rules of the Culling games through some sort of loophole, it would be Kenjaku. But remember, Kenjaku has to come to them, no matter what. Well, maybe not Itadori, because Itadori was technically Sukuna. So, I don't, well, no. Technically, since Megami is Megami in the Culling games, and Megami is Sukuna right now, then Megami Fushiguro, as mentioned by Kenjaku when he made the new rule, is the one that needs to be alive by the end. So, remember, Kenny has to come get rid of Yuta. Kenny has to come get rid of Kashimo. Kenny has to come get rid of Itadori. I'm not sure if Maki ever actually registered for the Culling games. I don't think we ever got to see her Kogane. But essentially, the heavy Hakari, Kenny has to come deal with them regardless. And if Yuta goes out there and burns his 5 minutes too early, even if it is on something as drastic as taking out Maharaga and Agito in one hit, then Kenny just lost one of his biggest hard counters. Because Yuta is still a very good hard counter to Curse Spirit Manipulation. Considering unless Kenny has trained his Cursed Spirits to somehow magically guard their ears, all Yuta has to do is perish, and suddenly everything's perishing. So right now, keeping Yuta in the back pocket is the best move for dealing with Kenny, who they are not dealing with right now. And we see that Yuta, once again, knowing that he's probably just going to be a hindrance, starts to sulk, and Kashimo just straight up admits, dude, that's not the point. This is Gojo's fight, and it'd be lame to interfere. See, this is once again a weird thing about this chapter. It has things I like and it has things I don't like. I like the characterization of Kashimo as a man who does not want to interfere in one-on-ones. I really, really, really do. I'll admit, it's basic, it's simple, it's not complicated detail to add to your characters, but I like characters that will respect the ones. That will be like, yo, you got this fight? I won't. Unless you ask me to verbatim, I will not hop in. It doesn't even seem like if Kashimo is requested to hop in, she says no, it's lame to interfere. And I respect that a whole lot. But at the same time, I'm going to make a whole video on this, but I really wish Kashimo was the opening act for 20 Fingers Sukuna. I think a lot of the fraud allegations and stuff would not exist, or at least not exist to their peak, if Kashimo was the opening act. And ultimately, that would be, I hate to say it, it would be me jobbing Kashimo. That is emphatically what it would be. But hey, considering the way the narrative's going, I'm not sure what Kashimo's endgame role is anymore, considering what ends up happening in this chapter. However, we see that Hakari, being the gambler, hearing all this talk about high risk, is like, well, get real with y'all. It's probably very likely that the King of Curses himself has a trump card, is holding that bad boy for later. So right now, if we hop in there, Sukuna could just whip it out. And presumably the trump card that Hakari is referring to is his original technique, his original body, a whole bunch of extra stuff that Meguna could easily whip out. I don't even blame Hakari for taking that into account, because that is very, very important. There's a lot of... Sukuna is still one of the most mysterious characters in the series. I wouldn't say he's as mysterious as a character like Kenjaku, because we still don't fully understand anything about Kenjaku. We at least know that Shrine, cleaving this mantle, is a part of Sukuna's technique, and it's technique that's granted to the domain, and he has the 10 shot. Like, we know that. We still don't fully understand Kenjaku at all. His endgame, his goals, his motivations. Meanwhile, I'd say we have a pretty solid read on Sukuna. Sukuna just likes existing at the pinnacle. As literally stated earlier on in the narrative when he was fighting Mahito, to a being as powerful as him, only his pleasure and displeasure exists. Sukuna's not, and that's one of the good things about it. Sukuna's not necessarily that deep, but Kenny's a little bit that deep. But regardless, both are mysterious and both are dangerous enough that hopping in against them right now is not the smartest move. So shout out to them. However, we finally cut back to the fight. And I will admit, I've been letting this slide just a teeny tiny bit. I do think Gege needs to take a nap. This is a similar vein. It's different. It's actually different. Now that Black Clover's gone, the three carrying Shonen Jump right now, One Piece. It's like, once that ends, that's gonna like fundamentally change the manga industry. Once One Piece is actually over, I have no idea how it's gonna change the manga industry. And it may do better, it may do, I don't know. One Piece is such a heavy hitter. That's why I was talking about the influence of what, in my opinion, was the new Shonen Jump Big Three with Black Clover leaving. But in terms of the new gen stuff, both MHA and JJK, I believe both their mangaka need a break. And it's not even like their art is looking garbage, because Horikoshi's art is, chef kiss, but he's dropping 7-page chapters. And for Gege, I feel like, once again, going to little minor things, looking at Gege's hair, looking at the shape of some characters' faces, looking at a general lack of detail in certain shots, I feel like Gege's art style has taken a quality notch down. Is it to the point where I think I could do better? No, never. I'll say this, I've said it once and I'll say it 1 billion times. I could never be a mangaka, especially not one anywhere near to the caliber of Gege. Definitely not Horikoshi. Any mangaka ever. Especially one that releases on a weekly basis. Once again, you could put me in Jump Giga and I would still fail. like straight up, I could not give you a 20-page chapter in 3 months. I couldn't. So the fact that these guys produce this on a weekly is still crazy. And that's why I do excuse the art quality or art drop off, especially considering Gege's health. That's a thing that does affect him. Remember, he took a whole month break because he was overworking himself. And I bet the main reason he's not taking a break right now and the art quality is suffering a bit for it is literally because I doubt his managers, the editors, will let him take a break. Black Clover's gone. MHA is in the middle of an important fight right now, but they can't rely all on MHA and One Piece. JJK is the hot topic right now, especially considering the anime's coming out again. The anime's going to start airing, I believe, the 31st, which is what? At the time of recording, tomorrow. So, like, obviously having JJK popping off in the manga and the anime would be chef's kiss gorgeous for them juicy dollars. And thusly, I feel like that's why Gege isn't taking a break, but I still think he deserves it. I think he needs it. And it's mainly because of little things in detail. Like, Agito doesn't look as detailed as it should be. Maharaga is getting more like Mahasloppy as he gets on. Like, the general shapes and the motion is being captured well, don't get me wrong. I do like how those things are occurring, but little details are missing. I'm definitely planning to do an art comparison video on earlier JJK stuff versus now. The art style shift is a thing, but the art style shift did happen and did have really, really good panels to it. Some of those panels are not being appropriately reflected, or the level of artistic skill through motion paneling, stuff like that I know Gege has, isn't showing up in this fight. And that's a little bit awkward. I hope when the manga comes out, he redraws some of this stuff. But then again, I know that's not all too common, so we'll see. But enough talking about the art. We get a very interesting situation here. So, remember, Gojo ended off the last chapter saying that, it's time for me to drop it. Unlimited Hollow, baby. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. So, me and everyone else kind of assumed that Gojo was going to immediately go for the maximum, but he's not. He's running away, which is funny. He's running away from Mommy Agito and Daddy Raga. And we see that Agito reaches him first, and Agito swings, but Gojo ducks it. This is one of the smoothest transitions. Agito swings, Gojo ducks, and just buries his fist straight into Agito. Presumably, this is a blue-infused fist, because remember, Ahito's not adapted to anything. It is literally just Mahoraga that's adapted. So this is a blue-enhanced fist, and he gets another black flash. So bro's in the zone twice over. He's unleashed 120% of his potential. Bro is on 11 right now. Forget on 10, 11. But the interesting thing is, Mama Agito immediately heals. Like, straight up, instantaneously, to the point where Gojo couldn't even land a second attack before the whole gut was taken right back up, which is very, very interesting. It's interesting that Agito is that bulky. But then again, I will admit, something that seems a little bit strange about these black flashes, but I guess because they are punching attacks, they don't seem to be doing the amount of devastating damage that you should be doing to the shikigami. And once again, I mean, the shikigami are bigger than him, don't get me wrong, but I do kind of wish the shikigami were way larger. Especially considering what we learn about this shikigami in this chapter. Because we see, as Agito poses up and heals its gut up, like, Hoo-yah! Ironically enough, it makes kind of a Luffy-esque pose when it does this. We see that Gojo just straight grabs its tail and tears it off. Honestly, I was kind of hoping he would start beating them. I know it sounds dark. I was kind of hoping he'd start beating Agito with its own tail. Just because, like, you stupid shikigami, go away! But we see he tears it off and just throws it to the side. He's like, whatever, get him out of here. But we see that Mahoraga comes in to protect its wife, and the tail immediately reheals. And Gojo begins to understand. Oh, okay. So, despite being the totality with Nue as the basis, it's not just that. It's what some people already thought of, and I'll give credit to. People noticed that it wasn't just Nue, but it was the round deer because of the antlers. People noticed the tail, obviously, which implied the serpent. And apparently, this is the reveal of the final shikigami, Born Tiger. I don't like that. Here's the thing, right? The final 10 shadow was something that a lot of us in the fandom were half the fandom wasn't sure if it existed, for one. I'll give it that. Half the fandom thought that we already saw the 10 shadows, that the Divine Dog kind of 2 slots in the beginning. The other half of the fandom, which is where I ended up standing, was that the final 10 shadow was something so broken that Gege did not want to pull it out yet. It simply did not. It wanted to hold off. I almost said JJK Gege. No, Gege wanted to hold off on revealing the final 10 shadow just a bit, so when he dropped it, it would be crazy, legendary, a beast that at least was near to the level of Mahoraga, or at least rivaled it. That's not this. Like, Mama Agito, I mean, it's a cool looking design, and it does make sense. The Morn Tiger being in there makes sense because of the stripes that are on its body. But the fact that the final Shikigami gets revealed through this, it's very, very underwhelming. At this point, why not have just introduced it earlier? Like, if it's not valid enough a Shikigami to be summoned on its own, and only against the battle, and the strongest sorcerer, or against the strongest sorcerer, I get that. You're like, dude, why hide it? You should have just dropped it as unceremoniously as you dropped Round. Well, then again, Round Deer was introduced really, really neat. And I'll even give credit to the bowl. But, like, why not just introduce it during the Yorozu fight? If it's not gonna do anything, and trust me, it doesn't end up doing anything. Because we see that Gojo, since he knows Agito is not adapted to the Limitless, he's just gonna destroy it. Like, he said, fine, I'll just hit it real, real hard. And Yeah, I guess. Agito seems to have no abilities, like none of the interesting stuff. Like it doesn't seem to have any electrical properties, or at least if it does, like Nue usually does, it's not anything important. It's not calling down any thunderstorms. Its healing is really, really fast, which is probably based on the round deer plus Shikigami's natural regeneration, which is neat. But heck, the Great Serpent doesn't seem to have any unique abilities, and the only other thing in this totality would be Nue, which has the electrical stuff, which isn't even being shown. So ultimately, Agito, while being a really interesting, I'm sorry, I've seen so many people down bad over Agito. Y'all need help. But with that being the case, I don't know. I can't even say I'm kind of underwhelmed. I'm very underwhelmed by this being the reveal of the final Shikigami. That seemingly has no abilities. It's just more raw power, I guess. Eh. A lot of people are saying, well, Pencil needs to take back the 10 shadows of the bad technique. I don't know. Once again, I said it in the video, and I'll say it again. The most useful Shikigami is one that has never been tamed. The only time it was tamed was by someone who isn't even a natural 10 shadows user and is literally the king of curses. 9 out of 10. No, 99.9999999.99999% of 10 Shadows users will never have access to Mahoraga as anything more than a double KO trump card. The rest of the technique is whack. Absolutely booty meat whack. Sukuna's making it look good. Do not... And I'll admit, I made mistakes for this when I was doing my own JJK tier list of JJK techniques. Do not mistake Sukuna's prowess and raw stats fueling this technique for the quality of the technique itself, because most people would not be able to use it. But we do get to see, and Mahoraga, after seeing its wife get its tail ripped off and its guts blown out by the strongest sorcerer, and just throws up rocks at Gojo. Very, very interesting. Like, I don't know what Mahoraga was expecting. Like, you've adapted to the infinite. You know it's there still. Like, the rocks won't suddenly get your negation ability. But we do get to see that the rocks float around Gojo. And Gojo just once again weaves Mahoraga. Though notably, you can see in this entire little opening bit of the chapter, Sukuna's nowhere to be found. Like, Sukuna's literally just sent the Shikigami out to fight for themselves. And we see that Mahoraga... this is crazy. I'm not exactly sure what happens here. So we see Mahoraga swings down, pierces the ground. But Gojo ends up... Okay, he dodges the swing into the ground. The blade gets seemingly embedded into the ground. Gojo grins at Mahoraga, kicks it in the arm, and then Mahoraga ultimately gets forced to slice the building apart. Then we finally get a little hint, a tiny little taste of Agito using one of its only abilities, and the electrical power, as Mahoraga gets knocked off balance by a kick, by the way. Seriously, this is just, I mean, to be fair, it's likely a blue infused kick, but this is crazy. Gojo's just boxing the strongest of the 10 Shadows technique. And we see that ultimately Gojo realizes, yeah, this thing will probably be an issue. If it heals Sukuna, I could be in trouble. Let's just execute this. And then once again, this makes me wonder, outside of the super regeneration, why not use Agito to heal yourself? Or why not manifest the round deer separately so it can heal your brain and you can do what you wanted it to do? Maybe once again, the RCT is just too complicated. Maybe Agito's pretty much or no. Maybe the Madoka deer, the round deer, the tranquil deer, I've heard a bunch of different names for it. Maybe it's useless right now because it doesn't have high enough level RCT to specifically heal the part of Sukuna's brain that he once healed. But like, broski, why not at least attempt it? Why would you throw it away? Though admittedly, we don't know what happens. Maybe this is the end, but we'll see. Because we see that after Gojo kicks Mahoraga down and around, he turns into Agito. And the electricity that was gathering between Agito's fingers instantly disperses. And Gojo goes, hi, and proceeds to get ready to take it out entirely as he punches Agito in the face. I don't know, there's something so funny. Like these gigantic, monstrous beasts of Shikigami getting punched in the mouth. There's something hilarious about it. But we see as Gojo begins to fight, Sukuna is chilling in the shadow realm. He's whipping it up in the kitchen. And he sees, or no, Sukuna's actually thinking. He's thinking about it. I'll just read this verbatim. Sukuna also makes plans within the shadow to not let Gojo use purple. When Gojo blasted 120% purple, which I believe should be 200% purple, but translation thing, 200% purple, he was able to face it since it was far away and got away with just his arms blown off. So essentially, I think this does imply that he did dodge it. He was able to read the trajectory of the attack and just like he held his hands out, realized, wait, this is purple, got his arm torn off and dipped out of there. It doesn't say that he tanked it with domain amplification or anything like that. But then once again, I'll wait till the official chapter. Well, not the official chapter. I'll wait till the translations come out to see what that actually means. Because that's been another big debate since the start of this fight. Did Gojo actually send a 200% purple and Sukuna ate it? Or did he use domain amplification? Or did he dodge it? Like, what was the dealio there? But we see that Gojo himself admits that with the current state he's in, if he gets hit with a purple, just a regular 100% purple right now, it will be fatal. It will 100% be fatal. And thusly, that's crazy. that is actually a little bit buku bonkers. Because the wild thing is, I think I can say it, at least right now, he doesn't have a way. At least he himself. We see he may have one way in this chapter, but he himself does not have a way to take Gojo out in a similar vein to Gojo having a way to take him out through purple. With domain off the table, Sukuna has nothing in his kit that's going to be able to take down Gojo, which is wild to me. A little bit nutty. But we do get to see that Sukuna is like, Dad, what are you doing holding back? You need to beat my bully. And once again, this is a slightly ugly image of Mahoraga. I don't know. Once again, I feel bad. I always say this every single time I insult art, or not insult art, critique art. Considering I'm an artist myself, and I know how much time and effort goes into a single image. Not to talk of like the 100+ images that Gege has to draw a chapter, but I don't know. It looks a little bit off. I don't know, something about this. It just doesn't look like Mahoraga. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's one panel that I'm looking at. It just does not seem like Mahoraga. He seems too skinny. He seems like his dimensions are off. It seems like he simultaneously has too much neck and yet not enough. I don't know. Something feels so off about Mahoraga here. But despite things seeming off about Mahoraga seemingly got an upgrade because the wheel twitches one more time as Sukuna really says, how long are you going to make me wait? You are my shadow, not Megami Fushiguro's. Show me what you've got. And in a mystical, magical, crazy way, seemingly enough, the wheel spins and Gojo Satoru loses his arm to a dismantle from Mahoraga. Wow. This is a crazy image. One slash and Gojo's arm is gone. It is literally, it's probably one of the cleanest slashes. Once again, it's from Dismantle. It makes sense. But admittedly, though, the angle of the slash is really, really weird. Like, for perspective's sake, let's use this arm because I know that part of the screen is. So this is the arm that Gojo lost. And it's his right arm that he loses. The slash is vertical. It is right here. It should literally just cleave off like this, right? But the slash that ends up tearing into the building is diagonal? I don't know how that works, especially considering like Gojo was standing up straight. It's not like he was tilted sideways or anything. So I have no idea how it worked out like that. But still, Mahoraga adapting Sukuna's techniques, being able to use Shrine himself. Very, very interesting. Once again, it's something that can only come from Sukuna as a Ten Shadows user. But that's intriguing. I wonder if Maharaga will now adapt all of Sukuna's techniques. All of them. That could be interesting. Including his real technique. If that is a thing. If it's not just shrine / cleave dismantle. But that is crazy. Maharaga just removes Gojo's arm. Straight up removes it. Deletes it. Control Alt deletes Gojo's arm. Though admittedly, I have to say this, that was not a pro gamer move. While you had the element of surprise, while you could whip that out for the first time, once again, completely ignoring Gojo's limitless barrier because Maharaga has adapted to it, and considering this dismantle is part of Maharaga, it's fully adapted to the barrier as well. You should have gone for that. Like, legitimately, why not? Why not? I mean, maybe, because here's the thing. Sukuna in the Shadows actually ends up praising Maharaga. Like, giving him slop for doing that while chilling in the Shadow Realm. Presumably, I'm assuming Sukuna's chilling in the Shadows right now, trying to fix his brain. I think that's the main thing. I think he knows that this is a good way to fix his brain. But also, I think this is some of Sukuna's hubris kicking in. Because presumably, he could tell Maharaga to go for the head. Right? He could immediately just tell him, don't slash his arm, don't slash his chest, go for the head. But we see that Sukuna specifically wanted to get rid of purple. And one of the big things I mentioned in a video a few weeks back was Gojo could have won this fight at the start. And Sukuna didn't have an arm if he just opened Limited Void. Because he would not have been able to perform a single domain counter. Domain amplification does not counter domains. Symbol domain requires 2 hands. Hollow Wicker Basket requires 2 hands. And domain expansion for Sukuna specifically requires 2 hands. Thusly, by removing one of Sukuna's arms, Gojo could have immediately won. He just didn't because plot. There's no other... like, straight... There's no other reason for Gojo to have not just opened a Limited Void while Sukuna was armless. No, there really is none. So, I'll be real. That's very much plot. Like, you can definitely write it off as character stuff. Like, Gojo wants to enjoy the fight too, but considering he goes to spam Unlimited Void, not like, 3 chapters later? It was dumb plot stuff. But I guess this is Sukuna wanting to drag out and enjoy the fight a bit more. Because there's no reason for Maharaga to have not gone for the head. You would have not had to worry about purple at all if you had decapitated him. He would have been able to recover from that. But unfortunately, that seems to be the only use of dismantle in this entire chapter. Like, at all. Like, there's no use of it again. Which is weird. But I mean, it's neat to know that Maharaga has that. I like it. And we see that Sukuna did properly render Gojo armless. Unlike Sukuna at the start of this battle, he doesn't just pop out another one. And this is continuing off the previous chapter, as what Shoko mentioned in 233 is mentioned again here in 234. She screams that this isn't good for Gojo because his healing is weak right now. And without proper healing, he won't be able to get that arm back. And without that, he can't use purple. Because purple is a 2-handed technique. Unlike something like red, where he likely just uses the other arm as a stabilizer and uses his one hand as the launching mechanism. Or something like blue, where he can create multiple blues on just a single hand, where he created 4 off 4 fingers. Purple is one that does require 2 hands, and a similar vein to Malevolent Shrine requires 2 hands. So Gojo being armless is actually a massive downgrade for him in terms of, actual potent techniques that will do things. And with that being the case, Gojo's forced to retreat. And I'd say for the first time in this fight, is actually properly forced on the defensive. Because now Sukuna, with purple being taken off the table, re-engages in the fight. He leaps out of the shadow and immediately starts jumping properly. So he takes the lead. He kicks Gojo right in the neck, presumably using domain amplification, because it does actually make contact, and Maharaga isn't in contact with Gojo currently. So I'm going to assume that this is just Sukuna taking advantage of something, but Gay didn't feel like drawing it. That's fine. Kicks Gojo in the neck. Mama Agito comes in, seemingly with an electric base punch, and decks Gojo in the back of the neck, or at least attempts to. Because, remember, since Agito is not adapted to anything, it's only Maharaga, Gojo still has the neutral limitless barrier up. And one of my favorite, once again, this chapter has so many things that are like extreme highs to me and extreme lows. This is one of the highs. we see Gojo properly coat his remaining hand, his left hand, in a blue. And he twists his head back with a manic grin on his head that I haven't seen since Shibuya, and says, "You aren't worthy enough to be here." And he immediately turns around and just he digs his left hand so deep into Mami Ahito's chest. And we see everyone's concern. Mama Ahito is like about to burst from the extreme force. And remember, this is a Gojo, even though he's missing an arm, this is a Gojo in the zone off 2 black flashes using maximum output blue infused into his fist, which we know gives it extra properties, slamming Ahito. And interestingly enough, this is the first time in the battle where I think Sukuna can be seen definitively not smiling, or at least bare minimum looking a little bit concerned. And we see, once again, just a weird looking panel of Mahoraga. I don't know what's up with Mahoraga in this chapter. He looks a little bit off. But Mahoraga is so worried about his wife as Gojo, after burying his fist into Ahito to seemingly start its regeneration process, using his remaining hand, he launches out and just uses maximum output blue. And boom, wipes... Sorry. He wipes Ahito from existence. But the main thing is, I love how Mahoraga... like, Sukuna hides behind Mahoraga's hand, and Mahoraga's like, "Do not worry, my child. I will not let this scary sorcerer man hit you." Like, I get it. I'm still in the camp that Sukuna's not a fraud. I know I joke around a lot, but don't worry. For me, it is actually literally just jokes. A lot of people are worried about the Sukuna fraud jokes and memes going too far from the Gojo fans. As a Gojo fan, I'm literally kidding. Obviously, fighting the strongest sorcerer is going to make anyone seem a tiny bit fraudulent for just using their abilities, because their abilities involve jumping. Like, I don't agree with that fraud stuff. Like, I've already made my case of what I think makes Sukuna actually fraudulent, and it's literally him just lying. Like actual fraud. But we see, as Mahoraga guards Sukuna, the blue singularity explodes and crushes Ahito from the inside out, absolutely annihilating it. Now, the question is Ahito now off the table? Is it permanently banned? And is everything inside it permanently banned? Is the round gear destroyed? Is Nue properly destroyed? We know this Great Serpent was already destroyed, so that doesn't really matter. What else is in there? It's round deer, it's Nue, it's the Morn Tiger properly destroyed. Are the shikigami that make up Ahito totality, Nue totality, Fusion Beast Ahito, are they now cooked permanently? Are they unable to respawn? Can they never come back? That's something I really, really, really want to know. Because, hypothetically, Gojo may have just made his situation easier, or if Sukuna can infuse that leftover energy into Mahoraga without despawning it, he may have just made the situation a whole lot worse. That's what I'm very interested to see. But with that being the case, the chapter ends with the narrator saying that after this, 41 seconds have passed, and apparently Gojo's purple has ripped through the battlefield in Shinjuku. I don't get that part. Like, how? When did he fire a purple? I don't know about that last part. Maybe that's just another mini translation thing. Maybe that's meant to be blue, because blue ripped through the battlefield in Shinjuku. It did. That's what wiped out Ahito. But I'm not exactly sure. Ooh. Light, please. But not exactly sure about how a purple ripped through the battlefield in Shinjuku. Though, another thing to note is that Gojo's still smiling, though he is looking quite devious, and his arm is already starting to regenerate. And I think this would be the first time we've seen a sorcerer outside of Akari properly regenerate a limb. I guess you could say Sukuna, but Sukuna is weird. But that's the end of the chapter. So here's the thing. This is tier 1 of worthiness, which I think this chapter hits on the spoilers alone. And despite my numerous issues with some character stuff, with some art stuff, with certain, things like that, I'm going to also whip out the secondary criteria. This chapter went above and beyond my expectations. And I know you may be wondering, Well, if you're so disappointed with things like the art and the character work, how? I thought this chapter was just going to be Gojo's maximum. That's it. That's all I thought the chapter was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be anything more or anything less. I thought it was just going to be Gojo's maximum. But Gojo's maximum does not even get brought up here. He uses maximum output, but that's not the same as a maximum technique. We've seen blue laps before. I don't think we've seen red laps, but we've seen the max output of techniques before. That is not the same as a maximum. I believe Ume does a very similar thing in chapter 215 or 216 when she saves Sukuna from Maki and Itadori. That's just their max output. I don't think that was actually their maximum. There have only been 3 maximums in the series, and Gojo didn't actually use it this chapter. So I think that's neat. Seeing that Maharaga now has Dismantle and presumably Cleave, that is crazy. Seeing Gojo get his arm torn off, yet still fight like it's no problem and already start to heal it is absolutely crazy. Agito, as much as I don't like that is technically our reveal for all the 10 shadows. We now have everything. The fact that it got one tap by Gojo was crazy. Like, that's really, really cool. And obviously, the early part of the chapter, something that I admittedly kind of don't like. I don't like that we keep cutting back to the other people. I feel like it eats up panel time. This is the most interesting start of a chapter setup that I think we've had in this entire fight. Because we get hints to battles and plans that I really, really like. We get hints of Yuta versus Kashimo, a fight that a lot of people would love to see. We get hints of Maki versus Kashimo, another fight a lot of people would like to see. We get in-depth discussion on backup plans pertaining to Yuta and Kashimo and stuff like that. Like, we get a lot of good stuff in this chapter. It is quality. The only things I don't like are some issues that I have with Kashimo's characterization, a lack of detail in the art sometimes, a lack of finesse in the art sometimes, and the fusion of Agito already including Morn Tiger, the final of the 10 Shadows, something that I was hoping was going to be cool on its own. But regardless, it's still amazing. It still is a W chapter and probably one of my favorites in this entire fight. Likely a top 3 for just how metal it is. However, that's what I think. Please what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. You get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Bull 4765. I'd like to give a very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean Gray, Red Bull 4765, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demix LND, and Art Goon. I'd like to give another super big thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha, Joaquin, and Idemokami. And a final very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose.